We're good? Okay. All right. Liz Gaston, thank you for joining us on the Pulling Focus podcast. We're really excited to have you here. Would love to start with a quick introduction of you and your role, and then we'll go from there.
Sure, yeah. Thanks for having me too, Riley. I've known you for a while, so it's good to see you in this setting again. So I've been at AgBiome about 5.5 years. I'm the marketing communications director. We got our small but mighty comms team in-house and work with a great agency on external campaigns, and our group kind of does everything from website, social, trade shows, advertising, and everything in between, as you know, and branding and stuff like that. And I've also gotten a chance over the last year to work on our B Corp team. So I got to lead the team that got us to the B Corp certification last June. So that was really fun too. And then AgBiome, you know, we're about 120 employees, and we are an ag biotech, big innovative company taking microbes from the earth and looking for solutions in agriculture. So
yeah, and cool. You all are essentially a neighbor to us. You're right around the corner in the park, and. Yeah, one of the things you mentioned for people who are listening is in a professional capacity, I helped out on the agency side, helping with AgBiome, and I learned so much about agriculture. And what do you feel like are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about just the agriculture industry in general, and how are you sort of engaging those when you're speaking to either people in the industry or people outside of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know, my background before AgBiome, I didn't work in ag, and what I've learned over the last 5.5 years is just how hard people in agriculture work. Mm-hmm. Like, it is incredible. And it's not just, yes, it's a seasonal type thing. That I guess that was a new one for me too, is learning just how seasonal a lot of ag is, but also just how hard, you know, you have planning. There's a lot of planning that goes on. There's a lot for, you know, growers, for people who work in agriculture. They're just going nonstop trying to find, you know, the right solutions to help growers. And, you know, the people that I work with on the research and development side, they're super creative too, like it's very scientific, but also creative, trying to figure out the best ways to develop a product and get it out to market to help growers have something, because, you know, they're right now, you know, there's lots of lot of noise out there, a lot of products people can choose, but they're not always, you know, sometimes they're not effective, or, you know, they might need just something extra to help them, you know, finalize like the best crop for that season. So I think that's been a big learning curve for me, and like just kind of appreciating when you go into a grocery store and you see like the strawberries that come from Florida, like, oh, hey, like I bet I've seen those rows, and I know you know, the campaigns that we did to try to reach those guys and gals who are out there, and try to see the best solutions that can help them. I think we kind of, at first, I didn't really, you know, kind of take it from a typical marketing perspective, like, oh, these are our leads and targets and things like that. But they're people out there, and everybody reacts to things differently. But, you know, it's been a cool ride so far. And I was going to give you the shout out. You are our first strawberry ad.
Oh. Yeah, somewhere out there's someone could hear my voice on some.
It is still out there on YouTube.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
Doing the voiceover for our first ad on YouTube.
That honestly might have been one of my first ever voiceover, and one of my only voiceover projects.
Yeah. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, exactly. We can link it. I'm pretty sure I could probably recite the words to it. I did so many takes that it's up here. One of the things that I learned about AgBiome that I'm sure people might not know is that you all actually have products. You're not just a research organization. So tell me a little bit about the products that you currently offer, and maybe we can touch a little bit on the process of getting those products in each state as well.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. And so our first product that was on the market is Howler fungicide, and your team really helped us launch the product back in 2019. So it's been on the market for a while now, and it is a fungicide, and it's it has multiple modes of action, and it's a biological. So it's derived from a microbe found in nature, and it works on a variety of. We've kind of concentrated on specialty crops, so it works on a variety of crops throughout the country. Strawberries in Florida, apples in the PNW, grapes in California. Peppers and onions, and it's been doing really, really well. And then we were able to launch our second fungicide, Thea, last year, and that was one of our microbes from our collection. And we actually even have a picture of where we found it. It was in a grain dustbin at an employee's parents' farm in Iowa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But let's talk about that a little bit. You found a microbe in a dustbin.
Yeah, grain dustbin.
Were they looking for a certain?
So he was Phil. This was Phil Hammer, and he's one of our plant pathologists. And he was on a sampling trip in Iowa and took some samples from his family's farm, and one of those wound up being Thea.
Wow.
Yep.
I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around, was it kind of a light bulb moment when I guess he's using some instrument to find these and measure these?
So he didn't really he just collected the
He's
dust.
collecting samples.
Yeah, collecting the samples, put it in a Ziploc bag, brought it back.
Gotcha.
And the big light bulb moment was another plant pathologist, Matthias. He was just kind of looking at the different microbes in the lab and seeing which ones were effective on certain diseases. And Matthias was like, and he's very honest. He doesn't.
Yeah.
And he was like, I think we got something here. And,
wow.
And that, and when I first started at AgBiome was when they were really starting to do some larger scale trials of Thea, while also getting ready to launch Howler. So, and that's kind of how it's worked. We kind of sample, look for things, and see how stuff matches up, and then go into development.
So,
and then eventually into commercial.
When these folks are in the field collecting samples, they don't know necessarily what is going to be found until they get back.
Right.
So
it just looks.
It could just be,
yep.
A fruitless mission out there, but no pun intended.
Yeah. Or it's just like an interesting place. Or we get permits to sample from places all over the country, and we get really cool pictures from the sampling trips. But it looks interesting. There could be something out there, but we don't know that it's going to be a Pseudomonas or Bacillus or whatever.
Yeah, one of the misconceptions I had when I was working closely with you was just about farmers and about people in agriculture, and not realizing just how technical the job is and how much technology they utilize. And it's an industry that is hardworking, which people typically associate with it, but it's also an industry of people who are crazy, crazy smart, and people who are crazy, crazy innovative too.
Yeah.
Which was really exciting to see. And so one of the questions I had was, how have you all gotten to understand your audience even better and speak to the folks that might be using your products? Does that look like going to their farms and understanding their crops and what they're producing, or do you have folks come out to AgBiome to see what's going on? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's probably a combination. We've since you last kind of worked with us, our sales team has really expanded. So we have a much larger group out in California. We have 3 reps in California, and then we have a rep in PNW and 2 up in the Northeast now. 1 in Florida, 1 in Georgia, South Carolina, and then 1 in North Carolina. So we're much more covered coast-wise now. And they do kind of a variety. They visit growers, they go on ride-alongs, they visit the retailers, which the retailer to grower relationship is really important as well. Retailers do they're the ones that are kind of buying the product and then also selling it back to the grower. So they're also kind of on the innovative scale as well, looking for new technologies all the time. And we're really fortunate to have some great retail partners throughout the country that are really helping us with that. And then depending on the crop and things like that, we'll have our sales reps, and we also have a big tech service team. I think does a really nice job reaching out to growers, especially and collaborators to do trials. And the growers, you can't blame them if, especially this new technology that's going to affect their crop, right? So they don't necessarily always want to try it without having seen it in a trial. So having the tech service team to be able to show, we have hundreds of slides that we can pull from now because of all their work, and them going out into the field with the sales reps as like the tech backup, as the expert on the product, and that's been a really huge help for us, just getting people out. And then also having then on top of the tech service with marketing, we have our 2 product managers who kind of oversee to make sure that we're having all the right touch points on both trials, but then also developing materials and programs that the retailers can then use for the growers. But yeah, and California, of course, you have to use we reach out to the PCAs, the crop consultants, who are the ones that write the prescription for the grower. So getting, in front of the PCAs is a huge thing. So there's a lot of meetings in the winter, when it's a little slower. So we get our sales rep, especially out on the West Coast. Actually both coasts. They're super busy in the winter, getting in front of both growers and retailers and presenting all the latest updates on our products. So,
yeah, it seems like it's a very high touch type of relationship where there's a lot of trust being built too, because that is a lot of risk using a product on your livelihood.
Absolutely.
And it's a physical thing that they are growing. I remember one of the difficult things was the EPA and just all of the regulations around getting the product registered in each state. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and that process and how that kind of has been difficult for you, or have you found ways to make that easier? Anything about that?
I think that also just comes down to our, as a marketing team, we really don't do too much on that side. Luckily, we have a fantastic regulatory team that handles all of that now, and I think they work with some consultants as well. But they, it's just like, registering a drug. Yeah. It's a little different, but you have to just play by the rules and hope that you give them all the right information. It's almost like, just keep communicating with them as well. And I think the states, has gotten more smoother as our team has developed. And then, doing things like making sure that we know what each state requires now. Because of our team with the experts. So I think before, just because it was a much smaller group and they didn't know as much. Like I think now we've got it dialed in, and Thea went much more smoother than Howler. If you remember, like we waited a while for California.
Is it if it's approved in a certain number of states, like the more states it's approved in, does that make it easier for the other ones, or is it really just its own process?
Yeah, as far as I know, and then, like Katie would know more than me, but as far as I know, it's just a state by state thing. Yeah.
So in all of your time at AgBiome, what have been some of the biggest challenges you've faced?
Well, the whole trying to launch a product when there's a global pandemic.
Yeah.
That was tough.
Yeah.
And I think, and I've worked most of my career in small businesses, and you kind of just take it as anything. We had a small team, we had a small budget. I actually thought we did pretty great at it. Like we took our small budget and we're like, how can we be the most effective? And we kind of started this mantra of right grower, right place, right message, and just kind of being guerrilla about it, like looking for, kind of easier. How do we get the most out of our creative, right? We start out with a base creative, do a really small ad, and we used digital a lot more, kind of got really kind of tactical about where we did our digital too. So we weren't spending, you could spend a ton of money on digital in the state of California, but if you're only going after one county, it's much more cost effective. So learning the location of the areas where we're going, and honestly, like you don't stay at the same place the whole time either. So you really had to get close with the sales reps and technical people to know, like, okay, this season they're going to start spraying, in March. So you need to make sure you get out ahead of it in January. So they're buying in January for the March sprays. So like, how do you get tactical about that? So that part was pretty fun, like figuring all that stuff out. And, we did a lot of experimenting. We had some, stuff that didn't work, but we had some nice wins. So that was pretty cool. Like, for example, that strawberry ad that you did the voiceover, we put it in one county in Florida and people were listening to it and they like didn't skip.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, the concept of being like more tactical with your spend, especially if you have a smaller team, I think that's some great advice. Just especially these days with the tools we have, we're able to be even more specific with marketing and making sure that like the right message is getting to the right person, and that's sort of like on the positive side of how some people think like advertising. The ads are so specific to me. Like if I say cat, my iPhone like gives me an ad on Instagram for a cat, which I don't know how that all works, but it is become a world where things are more relevant to us. And so what advice would you give apart from that to maybe someone working on a small team or working with a small budget, but going to like a big audience or a very specific audience? Like what advice would you give to somebody in a similar role as yours, or maybe someone who's a little more junior?
Yeah. I think there's so many awesome tools out there right now that you can get a lot out of. We joke, we call our AI our intern. You can get a lot out with AI right now in terms of content development and just kind of extra help. Like you almost feel like you don't need to have freelancers out there. You almost don't need a freelancer for a lot of stuff anymore because you can develop a lot of it on your own as long as you've done the research and know the prompts and what you're trying to go after. I would say, leverage those early AI tools, like the experiment with ChatGPT, with Bard, and even like software platforms like HubSpot have their own chat spot now, which is super helpful for even just doing like competitive research on search words. And then kind of going after these like kind of guerrilla, like strategic, digital, like leverage digital, especially obviously you want to do your research in your industry, but try out digital is great because you can experiment for a month and see if something happens for a relatively low amount of money. Yeah. And then you can move on, or you can try it again, or try a different color in the creative side, or a new tagline. And we did lots of A/B testing early on, and I think that really helped us for sure. And even video now is much cheaper than it used to be. Even just doing some small animations, or there's tools like Canva that you can do video with as well. So kind of going after those easy wins at first, and kind of making everything trackable too, so you can kind of report back to the people who are signing your checks, so they know that you can see. Not only do you want to track your successes, but you also want to see like, okay, this didn't work, so we need to move away from that.
Yeah, that's great advice. Particularly being able to track everything, and on the AI side, like we've definitely used AI to just get ideas started, which has been exciting. And I know Adobe is doing a lot in some of the video editing tools that will make our jobs a little more efficient, but still leave room for plenty of like human creativity. One of the last questions I have is just talking about AgBiome. From what I understand, it's a pretty unique company in the way it's structured and the way that it operates. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. We and it's evolved,
Sure.
I would say, in the last couple of years, but we have a fantastic work culture. It's probably the most active company I've ever worked for. Like, a lot of people run, a lot of people bike, and do active things. And we have, yes, we have an accountability structure. So I have an accountability lead who I, talk to, and it's almost like it's a great, mentor relationship as well. But I think you are also given, I don't know if freedom is the right word, but like you're given the flexibility to, try new things. And like if somebody else is working on something and it kind of falls into your expertise, people are happy to pull you into a project or ask you questions. And I think that's really important, to give you like kind of the freedom to not, feel like you're being micromanaged, right?
Yeah.
But you're also under the pressure, like, okay, I got to get this done. I'm accountable to this project. I got to get my stuff done. But it just kind of fosters this like great team atmosphere and great team culture. Like everybody's kind of in it together, and it's almost like a family like atmosphere, which is cool. And the transparency too. Like we can sit down and have these big company meetings, and people talk about stuff. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
You're gonna tell me this? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But then you're also always want to, because you have this great trust, this great transparency. Another big thing that comes through is like, I want to make sure I'm doing what's best for the company. Like you're not kind of out for it for yourself. So I think that's also a cool part of the company. And, our co-founders, Scott, who are our co-CEOs, I think, really try to keep that going. And the people that we've hiring is also a big part of our culture. Like we take a lot of time in that, and I think that's really helped our company grow, because we've been so focused on making sure we find the right people.
Yeah, it's pretty apparent. I've been in the building probably 4 times, 5 times. Every time I walk in, people are out, like up and moving and having walking meetings, and everyone's smiling, and it seems like a genuinely great culture to be a part of.
Yep.
The last question I have is, what's next? What are you excited about? I know there's some stuff that you can't necessarily speak to in detail, but what's on the horizon that you're looking forward to?
We're gonna have a product update, I guess, in the fall. I guess that's what we can call it. So maybe hold on running this audio till the fall.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think we're just again constantly looking at our products, and also the products in development, and we have some great potential probably in the next 6 months for some new things to come down the pike, which is super exciting. And we're just getting into like, okay, we're post-launch with the getting that sold into new markets. That's super exciting. And Howler's really gained some great footing, so like just kind of keeping that going as well for Howler, and actually seeing Howler and Thea work well together, which is really cool. So because Thea, yes, it's a fungicide, but it works completely different from Howler.
Sure.
So seeing how those two work together and how they can both help protect crops on different types of diseases, and really seeing like what a full season or what a full year of that would do. So that's pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to learn more about AgBiome or Howler or Thea, what's the best way to do that?
I would just go to our website, agbiome.com, or we're on all the social channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Maybe put it across the,
sure.
the thing.
Sure.
Or we also just started our own podcast.
Cool.
Not as fancy as this one, but check that one out too. That's on Spotify.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Liz, thank you so much for your time, and everybody go check out AgBiome and the awesome stuff they're doing in this space.